It was the spring of 1918 when the Allies and the Central Powers unexpectedly came face to face with a new foe, one that was impossible to escape from. This new enemy, known as the Spanish Influenza, was a contagious disease that is believed to have originated from Kansas. The symptoms of the flu included fatigue, aches, nausea, cough, fever, headaches, runny nose, and chills. The World War aided the Spanish flu in its succession to become a tragic epidemic by spreading the contagious disease through the soldiers, tripling the amount of lives claimed.
Spain was the first country to be affected with the flu in spring of 1918, but in the fall of the same year, this flu spread throughout Europe, Russia, Asia, and the United States. What started off as a simple 3-day fever became twice as ferocious in a matter of months, affecting 500 million people worldwide, but killing 20 to 50 million people, making it more destructive than the war itself. Surprisingly, people who fell between the ages of 20 to 40, the ones who were considered to be the healthiest, suffered the most, which later led to the understanding that having a stronger immune system actually became a liability in the time of the influenza. To make matters worse, the average life expectancy dropped by 12 years, but sadly, during the time of the war, these casualties were considered insignificant.
Officials had to urgently request the Public Health Service Department for more nurses and doctors because the war left a shortage of trained medical personnel in many of the communities. But even so, many of the doctors called became ill and could not provide assistance to those originally affected. Local officials were forced to shut down schools and community centers to build hospitals in their place. Most businesses were also forced to shut down, making it extremely difficult to send supplies to soldiers. For a while, the reason as to why the flu became such a tragic epidemic was unknown, but later scientists and physicians concluded that the war was at fault. The close quarters and massive troop movement that was happening during the war led to an increase in transmission. In every battle that occurred in the fall of 1918 and 1919, the contact with blood and the sharing of food supply also increased the rate of contraction. In November of 1918, returning soldiers spread the disease to every nook and cranny of the United States.
The Great War only allowed propaganda and war-involved countries to advertise encouraging news, so Spain, a non-involved country, was the first to advertise as influenza, hence its name, the Spanish Influenza. When people began to realize that this flu was becoming a threat, public health officials began to tell the dangers of the flu and what to do to possibly prevent it in printed newspapers, cartoons, and posters. Much of the population had difficulty in understanding the message that they were trying to convey, and those who did understand chose to ignore the warnings. In most places, quarantines were placed and laws that demanded the people to wear gauze masks were enforced. However, this did very little in the fight against influenza.
As mentioned earlier, the influenza epidemic of 1918 was by far the deadliest disease we have ever had. Because of the war, La Gripe tripled the amount of casualties in a matter of 3 months due to the quick, fast-paced movement. Looking back at it, the flu wouldn't have been as detrimental to society if the war hadn't occurred. The Spanish flu would have left just as fast as it arrived, but even so, this wouldn't have protected the hundreds and thousands of soldiers who were wounded and killed in battle. Moreover, this feral epidemic caused the world to crash due to the many businesses that produced the necessities for survival to shut down.